What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of California Underground. I'm here with Camille again tonight, and we're going to be talking about windfall taxes. We were talking about a lot of gasoline and a lot of what the heck is a windfall tax, and is it as we're going to tax the gas companies for as much profit as they're making on per gasoline or per gallon of gasoline. We were sort of kicking this idea around because I got in a pseudo debate with a bunch of lawyers. And first off, before we get started, Camille, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing all right, trying to stay as warm as possible for us weak Southern Californians who are like, oh my God, it's below 60 degrees. We're all going to die.
Give us 6 months and we'll complain about the heat.
Yep, absolutely. We'll all be sweltering looking for air conditioning. So anyway, I got into this debate in a lawyer chat room with a bunch of attorneys who thought that the windfall tax was a good idea because I had posted this quote from Robert Reich. And if you don't know who Robert Reich is, Robert Reich is a 4 foot tall Harvard economist, I believe. And that's his real claim to fame. He's become like a very good mouthpiece for establishment in the sense that his whole philosophy is if we just give the then we can fix all of our economic woes. So he wrote this whole article about and threw in there that people could tackle an inflation is to do what Governor Newsom's doing, which is proposing a windfall tax on gas and oil companies because that work that will get the prices to go down, and that's going to help people at the pump. Side note, I was thinking about that, and this really has nothing to do with the windfall tax. I've noticed in our society that if you're a hard professor, you're almost like a high who's like you can't question them, like they just know everything. And not to get all biblical on everybody, but it kind of reminds me of like the Pharisees who were like they were infallible, you couldn't question them. That's what it's become really with like Harvard and Yale professors or Columbia or any of those Ivy Leagues. So anyway, got in this whole tizzy. A lot of people were like, no, this is a great to do a windfall tax. Those evil oil companies are making way too much money, and therefore we should definitely tax most of their profits. And I can't seem to get a straight answer of what happens after that. Where does that money go? What do we do with it? But yeah, that's where it sort of all started. And then we kind of went down the rabbit hole, and here we are. We have a lot of stuff to cover tonight, right, Camille?
Yes, always. I would like to know what were some of their arguments in your lawyer chat for.
Let's see. One of them was, very scholarly. So, well, do you even know what a windfall tax is? It doesn't get passed on to the consumer.
Okay.
That was basically their whole thing, and I was like, sure, yep, that's
So
what.
then, do they even understand taxes? Do they understand
I don't.
economics?
Lawyers are not no economics,
Okay.
but lawyers, much like doctors, have this sense of like all this schooling, and I passed this really hard exam. Therefore, I can kind of master any subject. So lawyers have that sort of ego about them that they can understand anything.
Okay.
But the truth is, a lot of lawyers don't really know a lot about economics. So a lot of them
You
were,
you do.
yeah,
You enjoy studying economics. Yes.
yeah. Well, I read a lot. I mean, I try to read books on it. I try to read more Austrian economics books. I try to, news and stuff I don't understand. I just kind of look it up. But there's a lot of people who talk out of their butt when it comes to it. And the fact that their main argument was, well, it's not going to get passed along to the consumer because that's not. I'm like, really?
So we should start there.
I guess
That's
we, yeah, we
does work.
we could start there. Yeah. Let's talk about what windfall tax is.
Okay.
So basically, I'm taking this from Investopedia, which is one of the more reliable sources when it comes to like economic. That it literally says, what is a windfall tax? A windfall tax is a tax levied by governments against certain industries when economic conditions allow those industries to experience significantly above average profits. Are primarily levied on companies in the targeted industry that have benefited from windfall, most often commodity based. Does that narrow it down?
Yes, it narrows it down. You're probably still going to explain more just in case. But
Well, lucky for you, the next paragraph is
okay,
titled How Windfall Taxes Work.
and there's no drum roll for that.
There's no drum roll for that soundboard tonight.
Okay.
Oil and gas companies are common targets of windfall taxes. The massive net income increase for oil and natural gas producers, the International Energy Agency estimates they will double from 2021 to 2022, hitting an unprecedented $2 trillion is the current trigger for the imposition of windfall taxes. For example, on September 30th, 2022, the Council of the European Union agreed temporary solidarity contribution on businesses in the crude, petroleum, natural gas, coal, and refinery sectors on profits that are, quote, above a 20% increase in the average yearly taxable profit 18, end quote. This is on top of whatever taxes they already owe individual countries. In each member state, proceeds are to help households and companies and to ease the effects of high electricity prices. And in October 2022, President Biden threatened that he would seek a windfall profits on tax and oil or gas companies, which have reported very high profits and continue to charge high prices. He told them to use their, quote, outrageous and, quote, bonanza, the effect of the Ukraine war, to expand oil supplies or reduce consumer prices. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Ukraine again. I sent you Congress in March introduced a possible tax. So are we going to deal with two of these? We're going to deal with a federal one and then a state one? Maybe.
Possibly. That seems to be the topic du jour. I think that's the way, and this is not new. So
Right.
let's go back in time. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine, right? I think we both read this same article by the Tax Foundation, correct?
The one
I
I
think
sent
you
you.
said windfall profit tax is still a bad
You are
idea.
already, yes.
This one was actually all the way back in 2008. So this is not the first time that they've come up with this idea for a windfall tax. And it is in the toolbox of leftists that when the oil companies are making money, or they believe they're making too much money, and the prices at the pump get a little too high, they start to threaten, we're going to do these windfall taxes, which, again, just on the profits that they are making. Get into the basic economics of why that's a bad idea. But this goes back to 2008, that Barack Obama came up with this windfall profit tax proposal. He was not the first one. And the article, oil companies' profit margins are not outsized, and that companies like Google look a lot more unreasonably profit. Exxon. High oil prices are a signal of demand and scarce supply, and they provide incentive for increased production. Taxes discourage production because they drive a wedge between the price paid and received by the supplier. Windfall profit tax also drive up the oil imports because they discriminate against domestic oil producers to the benefit of Saudis and the Venezuelans. So, again, harming producers, but it doesn't hurt Venezuela, who the administration has already negotiated with to increase more oil, and he wants to buy more oil for Venezuela. Combine that with the fact that Russia oil from Russia because they're in a war with Ukraine. We're kind of in this weird place of we're punishing producers here at home while also buying more from foreign markets to supplement. And we're also begging, what was it, Saudi Arabia not too long ago, that Biden Was it Saudi Arabia?
I'm not sure.
He went
Was
over
that
and begged.
you?
I think it might have been Saudi Arabia where he went over and begged them.
I'm not positive.
One of those countries where he begged, can you please increase oil production because the midterms are coming up and I want you to make me look good. The Saudis, no, flat out, they're not going to produce anymore. All right.
When we buy oil from these foreign countries, how do we get them here?
Well, they come across on a boat.
Okay.
And that boat is not powered by unicorns and solar energy.
No?
No, it's powered by, I believe, oil.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, so it takes, and it has a carbon footprint to get more of that oil over here.
I imagine it costs us to pay the crew and the maintenance of the ships and whatnot to get the oil and bring it here.
I would imagine so. Yeah, I think it probably costs money to get people to put it on the boat, to take care of it while it's on the boat, to steer the boat, to manage the boat. And then when it gets here, they have to get it off the boat. And then it has to go through some sort of customs, which costs more customs workers. If they want to just drill here in California where there's plenty of oil wells.
But drilling in America hurts the environment.
And we can't have that.
No.
As long as it hurts, as long as it hurts the environment over whale up.
No, obviously it doesn't hurt the environment elsewhere.
No. Here. And that's all we really care about.
Yeah.
So let's go back a little bit more because I want to get up where all this came from. Let me see if I can find the correct article.
I try to laugh at things.
I know we have a lot of articles, so it was, I think I lost it. I have too many. Just going back to like sort of through history. Windfall tax, prominent one, as I read before, started way back in World War I.
Okay.
And this was, oh wait, hold on. I think I know where it is. Hold on. So during World War I, before the U.S. entered the U.S. Steel and DuPont's annual profits increased more than 1,000% each, and pressure grew for a war efforts profit tax. Instituted in October 19, the tax raised nearly $7 billion in revenue, nearly 40% of all funds raised for the war, and was the largest source of wartime taxation. Found ways around the tax. Smaller companies, the tax was abolished in 1921. So that was foray as a country into windfall taxes with a myriad of success. The second one, which was not that successful during Jimmy Carter's administration, back in President Carter signed into law the Crude Oil Windfall Profits Tax Act, which imposed a 70% excise tax on the amount of an oil sale price exceeding $12.81 per gallon, $36 in 2007 dollars. Who God knows what it is, $22. The terms of the new windfall tax are undefined, but this has to go back to Obama and everything like that. Carter's windfall profits fell revenues, partly because it was discouraged domestic production and partly because worldwide economic events caused oil prices to fall sharply during the early 1980s. Research service, the Carter era windfall profit tax reduced domestic oil production by 3 to 6% and increased foreign oil imports by 8 to 16%. So to your point, other oil come from? We get it somewhere. If it's not coming from domestic producers, it has to come from somewhere else.
Yes.
And
which we buy from several countries.
Yes. And we don't care about their environment. We just, our environment is okay.
Now, we also import crude oil. Export crude oil.
Yes.
I don't know how much. That also doesn't make sense to me.
Export crude oil?
Yes. I mean, are we exporting what we import, or are we exporting what we're getting from our own wells?
the way I think it's described is that we export it because it goes onto like a world market.
Okay.
And then it gets sold out. So, for example, during the Trump years, gas was so, because our domestic production was so high, we were basically flooding the entire world market with crude. And because there was so much crude, thanks to the United States pumping at full capacity, internationally, the price of oil dropped. And that's why gasoline ended up being, because at the end of the day, the commodity of crude was so much more cheaper. That led to OPEC trying to screw the United States refineries out of business by constricting their supply. Now we're going to cut our supply to even out the playing field because America is producing too much. Whole different issue. But yeah, it is confusing as to why stuff here and not just
Lights. Sorry.
It's your poltergeist is back.
I guess there's like certain trigger words. Go
Trump?
on. I'm sorry.
Is Trump the trigger word? Your light doesn't like the word
Most
Trump.
likely, yes.
That's why a lot of people think, well, why don't we produce it here? Into why the whole oil market is the way it is. That's just OPEC and that whole cartel. But that's a whole different bunch of other things that we have to unravel. Not really going to talk about in this episode.
Okay, fine.
So, have we set it up well enough, like what a windfall tax is and whether or not it had a successful past or a kind of checkered past?
Yes, I feel you went through the history well.
Okay. So now comes 22, which is where this special session that was called by Gavin Newsom, because he said in his own words that oil companies have in record profits too much, that the time for gouging California over, he's going to put a stop to it and he's going to stand up for the average Californians. So they called this special session because they're going to talk about introducing a windfall tax. And you actually got a copy of the proposed language into as well.
Okay.
This is an article.
You made it sound like I went up to Sacramento and knocked on doors and was like, give me a copy. No, it's because they talked about it in the, like they had a special session. It's available online.
Yeah. It's not like you special insider connections.
I like handed someone some cash.
Yeah. Camille's a very good researcher, but she's not like doing of like, can you give me an advanced copy that's not even out there yet?
Yeah, no.
This isn't like breaking exclusive news. You can go find this language yourself.
No.
Gas prices in California are consistently higher than the rest of the country, thanks to state taxes, a cleaner fuel blend, an isolated gas refining market, and more. But in September, California prices jumped even higher, and that gap grew wider. Governor Gavin Newsom pointed the finger at the gas industry when he talked to reporters in early October, saying companies were fleecing drivers and called for a new windfall profit. Valero, an international oil company that owns refineries in California, saw its profits from July to September increase 500% over the same period last year, and operations increased dramatically in April through time last year as companies that own the state's largest refineries, an analysis by Consumer Watchdog found. And then it goes on to talk what we already talked about: windfall profit taxes, checkered past. I'm just trying to. They talk about how in Alaska in 2006 they did it, but that's because Alaska drills so much that they can actually afford to do that. Then they talk about
during the wars. To do that, just because Alaska drills so much, should they have a windfall tax imposed on them?
I mean, no.
Okay.
So actually, the funny story is my college roommate was from Alaska, and so he would get a $1,200 check every year.
Okay.
Every citizen of Alaska would get a $1,200 check.
Right.
I don't know I mean, the argument can be made that you don't even need the tax to begin with, but yeah, he got $1,200 and he looked forward to it every year because that was his little stipend, especially when you're a college kid. I'm just trying to find highlights of this article. I need to figure out how to highlight on my web pages so that I can do that. Anyway, much to talk about in this. Oh, here we go. So how would all of this work? Details are spare at this point, but the basic idea is that companies that extract, produce, and refine oil would pay a higher tax rate on their earnings above a spokesperson for the governor said. The money raised by the tax would be sent via refunds to California impacted by high gas prices, said a spokesperson for the governor. The logic behind windfall profit taxes a company at a higher rate when they're making giant profits, a windfall, for some reason not of their own making. Often there's a moral dimension to the thinking as well, said Kirk Stark, a tax law professor at UCLA. Theoretically, taxing extra high profits at an extra high rate make companies less likely to capitalize on circumstances like war and natural disasters to jack up prices, like a shopkeeper who raises the price of bottled water from $2 to $4 following a hurricane. It's almost a kind of moral judgment that in some situation, market prices moral. Getting the incentives right is tricky, said Bornstein, as is preventing companies from evading the tax. If, for example, the state taxes profits of California refineries, those refineries owned by companies, including Chevron and Valero, could start buying oil from another division of their parent company at by doing that, they could reduce their profit. And if they're no large profits, their tax bill will go down. So going back to the arguments that these arguing with made, that if you impose this profit tax, it's not like the companies are all of a sudden going to go, oh, gee golly, well, they're going to tax our profits. I guess we better turn over all that money. It's hard to think that attorney smart enough to think, gee, I'm an attorney. Wouldn't I, if I were hired by Chevron, figure out how to get around this windfall tax? If I was an accountant, wouldn't I figure out how to do that for Chevron if I'm being paid big bucks to get around the windfall tax?
Right. Agreed. That would be their job. I would hope that they would think that way. But it's sad to me that they believe this isn't affecting the consumer. I mean, it's sad that they just don't think that way, that they're like, well, no, it's only going to hurt the company. We, the buyers of gas, aren't affected by this. Yeah. Okay.
Well, the one thing that's interesting, and you and I have, like I said, gone down the rabbit hole and looked at a lot of articles and a lot of other information. The one thing I did not see is a resounding argument that, hey, this does reduce gas prices. I didn't see any evidence that it actually does reduce gas prices. So I guess my question to Gab, what is your end goal here in terms of what do you get out of this? So if you think they're going to lower prices, well, they're not going to lower prices because you added on a new tax. In all likelihood, they're going to what?
They're going to raise prices because we're going to pay for that tax, because that's how that works.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like they're going to find other ways to compensate for the fact that they're getting reduced profits. It's not going to be as simple as, well, they're just going to turn over all the money. Hold on, I'm pulling up something on my phone. I just realized I haven't been watching this whole time. Anyway, yeah, and it's not like they're going to go, well, geez, we were really bad. We feel really sorry about making 500% more profit. So therefore, I guess we'll lower prices to kind of compensate and do that. No, they're not going to do that. They still have to pay their employees. They still have to pay the people who push the pencils, who drill for the oil, who transport the oil and do all that. Those costs, those fixed costs, don't change just because you impose a windfall profits tax. And it's not going to budge. And You're not going to go over to your gas station and go, oh, thank God they imposed this tax, because now gas went from $4 a gallon down to $2.99 a gallon. Like, that's not going to happen. I think that's why people are it looks good for the politicians, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really other than make them look good, right?
Right. So the text in the proposed bill, what is it, AB X12? They talk about how then the consumers will get a check back. I don't know how often we're supposed to get these checks back, but who do you think is really going to get the checks? These refunds, these.
Well, I mean, it's going to be like all these rebate checks. It's certainly not going to be people with poltergeists in their house like you. It's going to be people below a certain income level. They'll get $200 or a direct deposit. They'll say state of California, $200.
Like, I mean, seriously, are they going to be taxed on that? Is that going to be taxable?
Probably. It probably will be taxable income because it's income. Okay. I don't see it as being a non-tax. But it's going to be, it's not every Californian is going to see the benefit of it. And that's really,
we're all going to pay for the pump because the taxes are going to be passed on to us. Because I don't know why Chevron would be like, oh, we don't like making a profit.
In one way or another, correct. And that was another argument one of these astute lawyers made was, well, they tax on the profits, not on what your internal operating expenses are. So therefore, they can't pass it on to the consumer. Right. Because you don't think they know if we go above this certain amount, then we're going to pay a tax. And if we go above that certain amount, then we have to pay this tax and we're not going to make as much money in profit. So we have to increase and make more money elsewhere. So it's going to be, and this is probably why it has a checkered path. Windfall taxes don't really work, is because people are smart. Accountants are smart enough. Tax attorneys are smart enough to figure out how to get around all of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are some lobbyists as we speak right now, gas in California. And yes, they exist. One of them is Gavin Newsom's best friend, Jason Kinney. Go look him up. They do exist, and they do speak into the ear of a lot of Sacramento politicians. So I would not be surprised if this does ever pass. There'll be enough loopholes for the bigger companies to get around this, but the smaller refineries will not. And those smaller refineries are going to suffer while the bigger refineries figure out how to do what they want.
And the smaller refineries will either have to go out of business or leave the state.
Yes. And we're going to get to that in a minute, why that is a bad thing.
Okay.
So, but I want to talk more about the wording of the actual bill. Again, this is where a highlighter would have come in handy. Trying to find there was one part of it that really kind of ticked me off. From August to 2022, Californians experienced some of the highest gasoline prices ever recorded in the state. Even though the price of crude oil declined, state taxes and fees remain unchanged, and gasoline prices did increase outside the Western United States. Let's just stop right there. Because they already acknowledge that state taxes and fees are a big part of why Californians do pay more at the pump. So combine that with the fact that everyone was paying more for the pump because of the pandemic and restricted supply lines and supply chains. That would mean, by logically, and I know logic doesn't really go that far in California, that we would still be paying more at the pump because we were already the most COVID, we're still the most expensive after COVID. So state taxes and fees remain changed, and that's one of the big reasons why California gas is so expensive. So they're trying to blame why gas is expensive on the refineries without kind of saying, don't look at the fact that gas is really expensive because there's all these gas lines and all this stuff, and our gas has to be cleaner blends and all this stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with cleaner blends. I mean, we don't like smog, but they don't acknowledge the fact why gas is already expensive here in California. They just say, well, it must be more expensive than the rest of the country because of all these companies. Already shifting the blame.
When did, who was it? When the legislation, when did they vote on pausing the gas tax?
When did they try to vote on it?
Well, when they voted, it didn't go through, but when was that?
Was that, I don't know if, was that this year or last year?
Well, that was this year.
Was it already this year? I mean, jam-packed year.
Long year. It was this year. I feel like it was this summer. I don't remember exactly. Maybe it was May, but they didn't even pause it for us and then just sort of swept that under the rug. And then they're like, oh, look at all this. It's the oil companies, forgetting the part where they could have, suspended it for us for a few months.
Well, at the end of the day, if they did that, they would be showing their hand, which is Californians would see if all dropped 50 cents because the gas tax was suspended. You don't think a lot of Californians would go, boy, we pay a lot in gas tax, so this sucks. Get rid of the gas tax entirely. Maybe we're getting taxed too much. That's one reason why I don't think they would have supported it, because just how bad the gas tax is.
Yes. And yeah. Gavin Newsom has twice now, two different attorney generals asked them to open a case on why the gas tax in California is so high, or why the gas prices in California are so high. He's had two different attorney generals do that.
And we haven't gotten an answer.
No. Nowhere.
Because again, it's not Californians. It's about the virtues.
It's just words.
Through this language. I'm surprised they got this together so fast. I read that they only met for like 3 minutes, which was pretty incredible.
They what?
This special session only got minutes, and then it convened for 3 minutes, and then they disbanded. So
okay.
So it does have language in here that talks about the commission may impose an administrative civil penalty for a violation of subdivision D. The amount presumptively be set based on the amount of which the refining margin, excluding the state program costs, exceed the maximum gross gasoline refining margin, converted from barrels to gallons, and multiplied by the amount sold by the refiner during the calendar year as follows. And then it goes blank percent on amounts earned that exceed the maximum gross gasoline refining margin by less than blank cents per blank percent on amounts earned, and it just keeps going on and on and on. So that's it. That's their whole bill. Not very long, a couple pages. They basically blame everything on the gas company, and they're going to propose whatever number. Now, that's the tricky part, is how much are they going to actually do? Is it going to be enough to actually penalize them, or is it going to be enough to, because it is a tightrope. It's not easy, and a lot of companies will probably just close and move out, or just stop working, or they'll figure out it. So that's going to be the tricky part, is figuring out how much.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that.
I guess we're going to have to wait and see. Those numbers actually are.
Now, why do we hate that companies make profits? Now, obviously, you and I don't want to be gouged on things, but why Why are we so anti they make a profit?
Well, they're anti making a profit because it's the big bad oil. And
Why don't they
it's like that. It's like that tax foundation. You could make a stronger argument that a lot of these tech companies are making unreasonable, much more unreasonable profits than these gas companies.
Yeah, isn't it? I forget now. I thought Alphabet was the highest, the profits in California, and then the second. Maybe I'm wrong.
Probably. Sorry, Winnie caught me off guard. I think it was an Amazon driver or something, dropping something off. Yeah, when you look at Google or Twitter or Facebook, Meta, whatever you want to call it now, you could look at how much profit they're making, much they're actually, I mean, I guess their expenses, because the fact that Elon Musk went in and found tons of people sitting around doing that shows you that Twitter's expenses are definitely not as high as a gas company where they actually have to pay people to do. So I can imagine their profits are much higher. So why aren't we talking about windfall tax on the tech companies? Also, why are we not talking about a windfall tax on Jeff Bezos? Windfall tax was created to kind of discourage these companies from gouging people who are making a lot of money in harsh times like war or natural disasters, like the example want to gouge people for water during a hurricane when they can't get access to, or they don't want to gouge people for generators and stuff like that. Like that's the whole point of why you don't want a windfall, or you want a windfall gas tax. I'm going to get this right. A windfall tax on profits. But Jeff Bezos made an enormous sum of money during the pandemic, locked inside their house. And I think probably proposed that there should be some sort of windfall tax on Jeff Bezos, but knowing that it's Bernie Sanders, he probably folded like a cheap suit once it came down to it and actually proposing something. So it's interesting that they just select the oil company, because it's always been sort of the big bad boogeyman of the left is the oil company. Everything that supposedly the left stands against is big capitalism, corporate greed, fossil fuels, anti-environment, thing that the left hates. So it's the perfect boogeyman for them to sort of go after and say, we're going to tax you on all of your profits. If you're a good billionaire like Jeff Bezos, who pledges he's going to give all of his money away to climate change at the end of his life, then you get a pass. You can make exuberant, disgusting profit year over year. You can increase them 500%, 1,000%. They don't care. So I don't know if that answered your question or if I just went completely rant.
You both. I mean, there's no logical answer, but you gave their logical answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's just they're picking on the oil company. Easy in California to pick on the oil companies. But at the end of, gas is this weird thing in California. This kind of comes with my thought that Democrats hate poor people. Because it seems like everything they do is directly I shouldn't say directly aimed at, it has a direct effect on those of lower economic status in California. I mean, the gas tax is probably the biggest one, but per gallon of gas tax makes an enormous difference at the end of the week. Has to drive back and forth to work and how much money they're putting into their tank. So for some people, it could be the difference between Are you putting gas in your car, or are you putting food on the table, or are you paying your electric bill, or are you paying for internet? Kids can do their homework. Like, that's literally, that gas tax could affect, and it probably does affect, many millions in our state. And California Democrats don't care, because for us, we get a gas tax and we're supposed to be fixing infrastructure, and this is all good for the environment.
I was going to bring that up, actually.
Okay.
Newsom's, was it N-1919, the executive order where he basically took the gas tax funds that were supposed to be used for infrastructure, and then he just abused those funds. And then I think we got taxed more because I don't remember how much money was allocated, for the roads and stuff. And then he was like, nope, gonna take it and use it for something else. And then I think we got taxed even more after that, which,
Well, yeah.
I mean, you've talked about that many times, but we're paying more and more taxes for our governor and our politicians to literally abuse, misuse these funds. Like, we're paying our politicians to abuse our money.
Mm-hmm. Side note, this is why you always look at every proposition, and if it gives them the ability to put money back in the general fund, just ixnay it right off the bat. It says, we're going to raise funds for plays and music and all these wonderful things. And then it's like, side note, we also can put it back in the general fund to do whatever we want.
Right. They do that tricky wording, even in that one, ABX12. It's like, this bill will expansion, create, like, several times, which is just meaning expand, more money for this, create more.
Yeah, it says all penalties collected under this section, refunds and reimbursement to the commission for expenses incurred on the collection of the. I wonder how much the commission is going to charge in doing all this. Probably a hefty sum.
So let's say that, this windfall tax happens and that they, want to give the money back to the people. How much money, what percentage of it's actually going to go back to the people? And even then, only some of the people, not, who cares how much I drive or don't drive? I'm not going to see a dime of that.
It goes on to say, shall be deposited into the price gouging penalty fund.
Yes, which they're going to create. That's new, right? That doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's a new fund. And whether they can borrow out of that fund, I mean, they could amend that in a second and get their grimy hands on it, which is hereby created in the state treasury and upon appropriation by the legislature returned as refunds to residents of the state.
Residents.
Okay. Residents.
Not necessarily citizens.
No, not citizens of the state. Yeah, so it's they leave the language very fluid so that at the end of the day they can do more of what they want with it. Just like the gas tax, supposed to go in this big infrastructure pot where it was going to fix all of our roads and our bridges and everything. And then to go to other things like pandemic prevention and whatever Gavin Newsom just decided under his executive order. So I can imagine, maybe if this does go into effect, I can imagine this will be pillaged by politicians just the same way. And do the rebates come back regularly? Like, how often are these rebates going to come back to the citizens?
I have the same question.
Is it going to be once a year? Is it going to be twice a year? Is it going to be every quarter you're going to get a check? Because it cost, I'm trying to remember the number, but even to administer Golden State stimulus, whatever that they sent out, I think it cost like hundreds of millions of dollars to administer that.
Yes.
That's how inefficient the government is that they couldn't figure out how to do that for a lot cheaper.
Right. Right.
So
yes.
Every time we do this, it's probably going to cost the state hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh, these make me sad.
Also, people $200 back in their direct deposit.
Did everyone that was supposed to get the gas refund from this year already?
Actually,
Are they still working on that?
I think I did, because it goes off of your 2021 income, and we weren't married until the end of 2021. We qualified,
Okay.
so we got some money, but we'll never.
Congrats.
Yeah, but we won't see that.
You already went to gas. You already filled up your tank once it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really last that long. One of them being a big Jeep SUV. Good call on our part, right before right during a pandemic. Why don't we buy an SUV that gets like 19 miles to the gallon? Okay. Any other things we want before we move into
You still want to move into this, don't you?
I mean, it's kind of exciting. It's just hilarious because I'm like, is this real life, or are we living in a simulation, right? Feels like. Actually, I do want to talk about this last article. Maybe I'll bring it up because I think you shared this with me. This is sort of the fallout of all of this punishment oil companies have a direct negative effect on the California taxpayer. That they're going to push companies out of the state. And what happens is a lot of times they just kind of leave these wells behind, and then who cleans up after them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oil produced in California this year reached its highest. President Joe Biden is releasing millions of barrels of strategic petroleum reserve to keep oil prices in check. Fossil fuel companies' earnings are so high that Governor Gavin Newsom will tax appropriate. It might seem like a lucrative time to drill for oil in the Golden State, yet some of the world's largest oil companies, several of which in the state for more than a century, are selling assets and beginning to pull out of California. Even with strong cash flow in the short term, producers have more to gain from offloading associated liability, chiefly expensive environmental more oil and gas, experts say. This is the kind of deal you see when an industry is in its twilight. Some industry experts, lawmakers, and environmental recent deals noting that sales shift environmental liability from corporate capitalized firms, increasing the risk that aging wells will be left orphaned, unplugged, and leaking oil, brine and climate warming, methane. They see a threat that the state's oil industry could seen in other attractive industries like coal mining and lead to taxpayers bearing cleanup costs. So you sent this article to me. Do you want to give me the rundown of it?
Oil wells will get abandoned. Someone has to clean them up. The companies basically went bankrupt, have no money, and it's left on the taxpayers to fund the process of cleaning these, closing them up, capping them off. That's the gist I got from that. I know there's more to it, but that's the basics.
This was a shocking number to me. Super majors Shell and ExxonMobil recently agreed to sell more than 23,000 wells in California. Does that seems like a lot of wells in California?
Yeah. There's a list I actually didn't link you, and there's like 5,300 that they believe are about to be abandoned, that the taxpayers are going to have to be funding the cleanup for.
That's incredible.
And then I feel like the number that they said was like 200 something thousand wells in California. Not abandoned. A lot of wells. Yeah.
If all those wells were like working at full capacity. Now I know they don't all work at full capacity. Like there's plenty of wells they don't work anymore. They don't have any gas or oil in them anymore. It's not gas until it's actually refined. But man, 23,000 wells in California. It sounds like California could have been like the biggest oil producer in the.
I think we were for a while.
Even more than Texas?
We had an oil boom at sometime in the, what was it, the 1800s and 1900s, the early 1900s.
And we could have like super, super, super cheap gas here in California. Like we could have all the gas produced in California go back to California gas stations, or again, I keep screwing this up. We could have will be refined here in California, and that gasoline could go to gas stations here in California, and gas here would be like 99 cents.
Dream big.
Dream big.
Dream big.
I don't know if it'll ever go back to that, but that's really what it comes down to. California has the authority to ask for an additional 30 security from a single operator, but only requires ERA as one of these companies that is to hold a $3 million bond. As bonds cover less than 0.5% of the 1.1 billion that ProPublica estimates it the wells based on the average cost to California for past well plugging.
Remember that alleged surplus that we had? That was, Gavin said 73 billion, but then it was only like 45 billion, but then they've already used it up.
Wasn't it 100 billion? And now, well, I did see that because there's so many people leaving California that we're having a state revenue problem.
Well, that's going to continue. Like we didn't even talk about the fact that Chevron just sold its headquarters to downsize because it's shifting most of its workers to Texas.
And that's going to reduce a lot of. Right.
And so when they get their windfall tax, what do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to stay? They're already ready to shift to Texas. Or I'm sure they're going to be like, all right, we're leaving.
Yeah, there's no point in staying money somewhere else.
We'll go be appreciated elsewhere, California.
Exactly. This is like the fallout of the windfall tax, because if you're going to tax their profits and it doesn't make sense to stay here, excuse me, these companies are going to leave. And this is one of those of leftist policies, is that they don't see this far ahead and think that companies are just going to get up and leave. They're going to abandon these wells. They're going to go all the way through bankruptcy and all that to take no liability at all. And the taxpayer will be on the hook for it. And then, of course, the vicious, because then there'll be articles written like this one saying, oh, look at all these gas companies or oil companies that left. And we, the taxpayers, are stuck filling all their abandoned wells. Well, now, why did they leave?
I'm just curious how we're going to be able to afford the required electric vehicles when we're paying for all these closed cleanup oil wells.
I'll give you two guesses, but I'll give you one. I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint for one of the guesses. It's taxes. That's what it's going to be. It's either taxes or they figure out how efficient in the government. Which do you think it'll be?
It's going to be taxes.
It's going to be taxes, because it's always taxes. When at the end of the day, there's no idea that there's no tax that passes through Sacramento. That idea.
Okay.
So this is what I think you were talking about. 200 wells have pierced the state since the late 1800s.
There you go.
That's a lot. Of those, more than 5,300 are orphaned, deserted, and potentially deserted wells.
How many are deserted?
5,300.
Okay.
Yeah. So, there's a really good book. I think it's either, I can never properly remember. It's like Economics in One Lesson. Look it up. That his theory is basically this whole thing in a nutshell, where politicians think in repercussions and what could possibly happen down the line. They only think in terms of the here and now. And this will have lasting impact on the state. It'll have a lasting impact on taxpayers. It will not help the consumers. They always think right here and right now. They don't think 10 steps down the road. They don't think 20 steps down the road. They only just think right here and right now. And that's the whole theory of that book. And this is one of those perfect examples, in my opinion, that it sounds good. And, you're going to score a couple political points so that you can stay in office, get the praise of Robert Reich from Harvard, but it doesn't, and it's going to end up hurting everyday Californians.
Mm-hmm.
So, any final text before we move on to our final lighter topic?
I just want lower taxes. I just want less taxes. That's my thoughts.
I just miss the days where when I first started driving, I'd pull out a crisp $10 bill, give it to the guy, and go fill her up.
When you could actually safely keep $10 in your car for those gas emergencies, knowing that no one's going to break into your car, take your $10, and that it would. Where did you live that they filled up the gas for you?
You can't. It's the last state in California, or in the last state in the country, oriented. It's not all California. It's the last state in the country that does not allow you to pump your own gas. It is illegal.
I remember being a kid and going to the gas station. They'd have little signs that said "We serve ladies," but those disappeared by the time I turned 16. Now, ladies is anyone. So
somebody's in chat, Oregon. They actually just stopped that a couple years ago, and a lot of people were very freaked out about the turnover because they'd grown up their whole lives not knowing how to pump gas, and then like one day they're like, "Hey, you got to pump gas," and people are like, "What? I don't." First time I had to pump my own gas here in California, I was like, I got to go talk. I got to get permission to pump gas. What is going on here? This is really weird. But yeah, in California, or in New Jersey, why do I keep saying? But in New Jersey, you still can't pump your own gas, so you pull up and you tell the attendant $10. And back
so
then,
do you have to wait? Like, is there like one person working? I'm sorry, now I'm really curious about this. Like, if there's like 6 pumps, is there just the one person and they're kind of like running from pump to pump?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it could be.
Literally, this is a foreign concept to me, so I'm curious how it works.
Now, there's plenty of times when I remember sitting in the car with my mom, and the gas pump would go off. You'd hear the click, and you could see that the numbers stopped going, and you'd be looking around, going, like, where's this kid who's pumping gas? Where is he? Where is he? My mom would get very frustrated. She'd be huffing and puffing. It'd be like 30 seconds or something.
But do you tip them?
No, you don't tip them.
Okay.
So it was probably the worst job in the world to be someone who pumped gas, because you didn't get tips and you had to sit there all day, which gasoline like rots your brain. Scientific. I remember reading that like the smell of gasoline kills brain cells. So if you work 8-hour days, you're not doing yourself any favors. It's not like you can do this and then like go to college. Like, you're killing more brain cells just working at a gas station. But funny story. This is really off topic before we get on announcement. There is this Sunoco in town. Now, mind you, town in New Jersey, real small rural town, only like less than 10,000 people. Literally like one main thing went through. Had 3 gas stations right in a row. I don't know why they needed 3 gas stations right in a row.
You can't pump your own gas.
Not maybe. There was so much of a backup that people gas station, but there was 3 right in a row, and one of them really an idea that I'm going to set myself apart, and even though my gas is the 3, I'm going to hire young girls to pump the gas in like skimpy clothing.
Oh.
And they got Sunoco Angels. So you would see the line during the summertime was all at Sunoco to go get gas, and the other two gas stations. So
this just went downhill so fast.
So that was the Sunoco Angels thing for a while.
How old were you when this happened?
Well, I just started driving, so I was like 16 or 17.
Okay.
But
okay.
Just a lesson in capitalism there. You need yourself from the rest of the crowd, and yourself from the rest of the crowd. If you want to differentiate presidential candidate, there's one thing you could do, and that is you can sell your own trading cards. And as of yesterday, the big announcement from Donald Trump, the big major announcement that everybody was and tweeting about, that Donald Trump had a big announcement, is that he's going to sell his trading cards. Are you ready for this? Have you watched the video?
Oh, I haven't watched the video, so this will be good.
Okay, we're going to watch the video, and then we're going to make our comments, and then we'll end the show there.
No sound.
There's no sound?
No sound.
Try it again. Oh, wait, I know what I did. There we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Donald Trump. Hopefully your favorite president of all time, better than Lincoln, better than Washington, with an important announcement to make. I'm doing my first official Donald J. Trump NFT collection right here and right now. They're called Trump Digital Trading Cards. These cards feature some of the really incredible artwork. My life and my career, it's been very exciting. You can collect your Trump digital cards just like a baseball card or other collectibles. Here's one of the best parts. Each card comes with an automatic chance. Amazing prizes like dinner with me. I don't know if that's an amazing prize, but it's what we have. Or golf with you and a group of your friends at one of my golf courses, and they are beautiful. I'm also doing Zoom calls, a one-on-one meeting, autographing memorabilia, and so much more. We're doing a lot. My digital trading cards are $99, which doesn't sound like very much for what you're getting. Buy one and you will join a very exclusive community. It's my community, and I think it's something you're going to like, and you're going to like it a lot. They also make perfect gifts. So you can buy them with your crypto. All you need is an email address. Go to collecttrumpcards.com and buy your Trump digital trading cards right now, or they are all gone, and they will be gone. This is my first official Trump trading card NFT collection, and you get a chance to go to collecttrumpcards.com right now. And remember, Christmas is coming, and this makes a great Christmas gift.
No purchase necessary.
That might I'm sorry. That might be the most thing in the entire. I mean, it's definitely these pictures. Okay, let me pull up some of these pictures.
They're really good.
This one. Like, who sat down and went, we're gonna take pictures. You take your face, and we're gonna superimpose it and Photoshop it onto a superhero wrestler body with an American flag.
I think I love the John Wayne-esque one the most.
Oh yeah, there's one. Is it this one?
Is.
Oh, Trump the cowboy.
It's like the sheriff.
This is Trump on a football field with 45. He's on the 45-yard line, which there's no such thing as the 45-yard in football. It's the 40-yard line. the Top Gun glasses on. It's just, and the commercial itself is just so Trumpian.
Oh, it is.
They're probably your most favorite president ever, more than Lincoln. Good, but listen, I'm probably the best. Listen, gotta get these. They're already gone. Actually, they're so good. I'm being told right now. I'm filming this commercial. They're already gone. Okay, don't even bother. They're so popular. Here's me in an astronaut like this one. This is me. One small step for Trump, one giant leap for Trump kind. Okay. And I don't know what's he supposed to be here? Is he a wrestler? Is he a superhero?
He's a wrestling superhero.
A wrestling superhero.
Why can't he be both things?
When you're Donald Trump, you can do whatever you want.
The astronaut one is also on the now made up 45-yard line.
You can get the astronaut on the 45-yard line.
Yeah, did you see that? Like, or was that just the way it looked like it was on the 45-yard line, but maybe it's just 45.
It's like a platform.
Oh, okay, I
45.
See.
Sorry. They gave him the little smirk too. They were like, "Here, Trump, you're gonna do a little smirk in this picture with your glasses on." Like, so, any sense? He's a cowboy. Trump is not a cowboy. Why would you make Trump a cowboy?
We talked about NFTs, and the whole purpose of the NFT is that it's supposed to be what comes with the NFT. Mm-hmm. Which in this case, he talked about you're going to get automatically entered to win a prize. There's different prizes associated with different NFTs of these. And like, did you read any of that? I actually did read that part. I have the links open right now where like there's one prize where you have to purchase a minimum of 45 Trump NFTs. And then you're entered to win one ticket to a 2,000-person President Trump gala dinner at a location, date, and time to be determined by sponsor in its sole discretion. Okay. The fine print on this, though, because, then at the end, did you notice they're like, no purchase necessary? So I clicked on that. I'm like, okay. So the point of the NFTs now is that you get entered into these exclusive sweepstakes, but it turns out anyone can enter these sweepstakes. There's no purchase necessary. You just have to get a little index card and a number 10 envelope and handwrite it, send it off, and you're allowed up to 100 of these entries. And so anyone can enter this. So those of you listening, if you can't afford this $99 NFT, go to the website and you can enter. But then it talks about like, okay, so the golfing trip and whatnot that you can win. You get the golfing trip, but you have to pay your way to get there. Like, they're not gonna pay for your hotel. They're not gonna pay for your flight, your Uber, whatever. Like, that's all on you.
So you still have to get to Trump.
That's all on you. And they choose obviously the date of these events. And if you're not available or he suddenly becomes unavailable, they'll give you a free NFT in place of the prize.
This is like, this is like one of the most.
Hold on. There was something, I was so confused about this. There was something like if you happen to purchase the NFT and win the prize, to get the prize, you must burn your NFT. Okay, what does that mean? It's effectively destroying the token by sending it to an address that nobody possesses, even though the NFT still will exist on the blockchain. There's no way of accessing it. Therefore, it's considered burned or removed from circulation.
I'm sorry.
Collector cards are no longer, if you want a prize, they're no longer a collector card. You have to like burn it to collect your prize. And now you can't even trade your trading card.
I'm confused.
I just
in a cowboy hat and go, what the heck is going on here? Whose idea was this? How many people actually ran out? I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who ran out and bought this.
Go ahead and right click on that and make it your screensaver, make it your desktop.
I might.
You want to.
I'm going to make it the one where it like bounces around your screen too. So you just see Trump in a cowboy outfit bounce. People will be like, what is on your screensaver? All right. So our final opinion. Trump is clearly the front runner for the Republicans in 2024. Would you say this or a bad move on the part of Trump?
Define good move. Define good versus bad.
Do you think this makes him more likely to be voted as president or less likely people will vote for him as president?
I think it actually is a good move.
Oh, okay.
As ridiculous as it is, and I'm laughing at it, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's
true.
talking about him. No one's like, in fact, I saw a lot of people be like, see, Trump is the front runner. Trump is the man. Like, they're not, people that love Trump aren't going to be like, oh, I'm not going to vote for him now because he released a bunch of these silly NFTs with him being a wrestler and a football player and an astronaut and cowboy. Like, I mean, the diehard Trump fans are like, yeah, he is all those things anyway. See?
He's everything. He's the God Emperor.
I always pictured him to be.
He's everything to every man.
Everything.
Of back in the day on Reddit, there was this subreddit called, and it was all dedicated to like Donald Trump running for president. Yeah, a lot of people on there who would meme and they'd put Trump's face on everything.
Yes.
So this is what it kind of reminds me of is like they probably saw all that stuff and they were like, well, everyone else, why don't I put my face on stuff and I'll make money? That's probably what Trump was thinking.
I didn't look at this at all. Does this go to his campaign? Like, is it considered a donation to his campaign, or is it just? And yes, when I saw these, that is exactly what I was reminded of when they would put Trump's face on, you know, like bodybuilder bodies and.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it goes to him or if it goes to his. I figured it would go to his campaign, but.
Well, I think it would have to say something on there, but I didn't look. Like, is there a.
Or he's just making money off of it.
Which is fine. People are allowed to make money. Just not.
Yeah, Trump's allowed to make money.
I'm browsing. I don't see any like FEC number or anything like that.
Doesn't stand out, so probably not. Because he could get a lot of big donors. He doesn't really. That's why I thought this was weird if this was a campaign stunt. Because I didn't really.
Campaign stunt without it going to the campaign. I mean, we're talking about it.
We are talking about it. And Trump has been really quiet since his announcements. He had his major announcement at Mar-a-Lago, and this. So these were his two big announcements so far.
So which one are you going to
buy? I'm leaning towards the cowboy. Not this one because it's just an abomination of what football. I mean, like, if you're a football fan, you know there's no such. The Top Gun one.
Maybe you'll buy one and Yvonne will buy you the other one for Christmas.
Maybe. Is it too late to put? Is it Christmas list? The astronaut's pretty cool too.
You sound so serious. I almost believe you.
No, I'm not buying any of these for $99. And with that, I think we'll end the show on a lighter.
So with that, you're asleep. You're like.
With that, my eyes are enough looking at Trump on a bodybuilder or as a cowboy or stuff like that. On that, we'll end the show for tonight. I think we covered a lot tonight. That's for sure. From gas tag as an astronaut and a cowboy. Any final thoughts for the show, Camille?
Not tonight.
Not tonight? Okay. For everyone who's listening, as I always say before we end the show, make sure if you like this, the best way to support the show, somebody else know, text them, message them, send them a Trump NFT with let's go tune into California Underground they sent me. And if you listen on audio, make sure you like, share, subscribe, review, comment, helps the algorithm, all that stuff. And we'll see you after Christmas. I believe we'll be back after Christmas. So Merry Christmas, happy holidays, everybody. And we'll see you on the next one. Later.
Bye.